All right, in this video, I'm going to try to walk through drawing out a cell, okay, an animal cell and a plant cell, and I'm going to try to link the ideas of behind the macromolecules. How are the macromolecules involved in the cell structure? Okay, so we have a lot of different cell structures and organelles and parts to the cell, and each is made up of one of the four macromolecules. Okay, so I'm going to try to color code this for some of you who are more visual learners. So let's see what happens here. Okay. First of all, let's start with, we're going to say pink is lipids. So let's just label that here. Okay. And then red is carbs. I'm going to list the four macromolecules. These are the four different materials used that are needed to make up the cell. Okay. In blue, we have proteins. Okay. And purple, we're going to say, are nucleic acids. Okay. These are the four macromolecules that make up, that are the materials that we find in the cell. Okay. If we were talking about cars, we might say we need metal, and we need fabric or leather, and we need plastic and glass to make up a car. Okay, we know what these different macromolecules are, hopefully, by this point, and hopefully we also know what their monomers are, right? Lipids, we have fatty acids, carbs are made up of simple carbs, proteins are made up of long chains of amino acids, and nucleic acids are made out of nucleotides. So let's walk through and see where each of these different materials or macromolecules shows up in, let's say, an animal cell. Okay, so we're going to start with the outer layer, and this is called the cell membrane. Okay, animal cells tend to be round. Okay, the outer layer is a membrane, a phospholipid bilayer. Okay, and these are made out of lipids. Okay, so the cell membrane or the plasma membrane is the outer layer of the cell. Now, there are also membranes inside the cell. There are also lots of lipids inside the cell because a lot of the different organelles are surrounded by membranes. Not all of them, but quite a few. So let's start in the middle. Okay, one of the main organelles that we need to know about is the nucleus. Okay, the nucleus is the house of the DNA. Okay, so the nucleus itself is just another little ball of membrane, right? But it protects and holds the DNA. Now, what is the DNA? The DNA is a nucleic acid, right? Deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay, and this is the double-stranded, double helix nucleic acid that contains all of the recipes for all of the proteins that the cell needs to make. Okay, making proteins is one of the main functions of cells, and the instructions for all of those are housed in the DNA, which is stored in the nucleus. Okay, now, if, for example, we need to make lactase, which is a protein, right? Protein used to digest lactose, a carbohydrate. There's that protein's recipe is just going to be a small portion of this DNA. Okay, that is copied into RNA. Okay, so that's going to be a lot shorter than the DNA because it's just one recipe for one protein. Okay, this is a lot smaller than the DNA, so it is able to exit the nucleus through some very small pores. Okay, so this is RNA and DNA. And those are in the nucleus, okay? And those are both nucleic acids. That is the material that we find inside the nucleus because that's what they're made of. Okay, now, once the RNA is created and it leaves the nucleus, it's going to go, remember we're trying to make proteins here, it's going to go to a particular protein called a ribosome, okay? We have tons of ribosomes throughout the cell, because there's only one nucleus, but there are tons of little ribosomes. Think about them like the nerds on the Nerds gummy clusters. Okay, these are not bound by membranes. They kind of look like hamburgers a little bit. They're like a two-part protein. Okay, and I'm just gonna, the RNA slips in here and is read by the ribosome. Okay, and the ribosome, I'm going to go back to blue because out comes a chain of amino acids that are going to eventually make up a protein. Okay, we're still sticking to this, what kind of material makes up each of these things? Well, the thing coming out of the ribosome, which is a protein itself, is also a protein. Okay, so it's like a brick factory making bricks. Okay, but this is happening. This is a ribosome. In all of these different ribosomes throughout the cell. Okay, so constantly, whatever proteins are needed as deemed by the DNA, the recipe for that protein is sent to a ribosome, and new proteins are made. Okay. All right. So we've got the nucleus, the cell membrane, the ribosomes, the genetic material or DNA and RNA. Now, in order to do all this, we need some energy, right? We need to have some energy, and that energy comes from glucose, okay? As consumers, we do not produce our own glucose. We have to get it from somewhere else. So we either have to eat plants or we have to eat other animals that have eaten plants. So, but let's assume that we have obtained glucose somehow. Okay, I'm just going to call that glucose. Now, that glucose that came into the cell is going to be taken up by one of these guys, and there are more than one. This is the mitochondria. Okay, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. We all know that. And it is made up of two membranes. Okay, there's a double membrane on this. We'll learn more about this later, but that is the material that makes up the mitochondria. Is glucose a lipid? No, glucose is the carb that goes into the mitochondria. Okay, I'm going to switch to this here. Okay, glucose goes in and ATP comes out. ATP is energy. Oh, nope, did not want that. This is where, let's see. Not sure why it did that. Okay, glucose goes in and, okay, why is this? If I delete it, oh, all right. How about we just stick to drawing with the pens, because we seem to have accomplished that today. All right, so, yeah, so glucose goes in, ATP comes out. The ATP is not any of the macromolecules, it is a chemical. So let's add a pen in black. Okay, perfect. ATP comes out. Oh my word. ATP. Okay, this is like the cash currency of energy in a cell. It can be used by any cell to do all of the things that we need cells to do. Okay, so these mitochondria are super important. We have a bunch of these all around the cell. Okay, there's another mitochondria. Kind of can tell by this double membrane, and it kind of looks like this. Okay, lots of different mitochondria all throughout the cell. Made up of two membranes, glucose goes in, ATP goes out. Okay. Let's look at another membrane-bound organelle. Okay. If it's membrane-bound, it's going to be pink. So we've got the lysosomes. Okay, lysosome is, oh, we haven't been labeling these very well. Can I just say mitochondria and keep it short and sweet here? Here's another mitochondria. Mitochondria, nucleus, that's the genetic material. Proteins, these are the ribosomes. Okay. The lysosome is the recycling center of the cell. Okay. It has a membrane around it, but its main function is to digest proteins, digest carbohydrates, digest all the stuff that the cell no longer needs, right? When we get an Amazon box, we don't just let those accumulate in the house for too long. Okay, at least at my house, they do kind of get tossed around and the dog plays with them, but eventually they need to be broken down and taken out to the trash. So we have digestive enzymes inside, and as you hopefully remember and know by now, enzymes are proteins. Okay, so you're going to have a bunch of these digestive enzymes, probably not all the same thing, right? Because sometimes carbohydrates are going to need to be broken down. Sometimes lipids are going to need to be broken down. And enzymes are specific to their substrates, right? But either way, we have a ton of digestive enzymes inside the lysosome to recycle the parts. Okay, this is where it becomes important to know that lipids would be broken down into fatty acids, carbohydrates would be broken down into simpler carbs, proteins would be broken down into amino acids, nucleic acids would be broken down into nucleotides, right, like A, T, C, and G. And all of those different monomers, those building blocks, can be used again by the cell. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What are we missing here? Look at this. I have not participated in the. I've got ribosome, cell membrane, genetic material, nucleus, mitochondria, cell wall, chloroplast, and vacuole. Okay. This is all for the plant, for the animal cell. Okay. I'm gonna pause this video because I only have 15 minutes to use on this. But I'm gonna make another one about the plant cell next door. Okay.